So what's the mood in Brussels? I spoke earlier to the Dutch MEP Sophie Veld, deputy of the EU Parliament's chief negotiator Guy Verhofstadt. And I asked whether after David Davis said in the Commons today that the plan was always for Northern Ireland to have the same regulatory arrangements as the rest of the UK, if that was her understanding of yesterday's deal.
Well, I think that's fantastic, because that in essence means that Brexit's not going to happen. Because if there's regulatory alignment, then, for a very large part, then the UK would still follow the same EU rules. It doesn't make much sense to me, but if that's what Mr. Davis proposes, that sounds very good.
But hang on, if we went down the David Davis route, regulatory alignment, would we have to have free movement as well?
Well, again, we're talking about very shady proposals here. We don't know what we're actually talking about, but
well,
regulatory alignment means that you adopt that. No, but nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Okay.
And quite honestly, at some point we would also like to know exactly what it is that the UK government wants. Only once we have a clear idea of that, we can negotiate.
Can I ask whether you think there's any solution to the Northern Ireland border issue that doesn't involve a border between Britain and Northern Ireland and allows Theresa May to keep her red lines? She's spelled out some red lines. Can she keep those red lines, not have a border down the Irish Sea, and not have a border with the Republic of Ireland? Does that work in any way at all?
What we don't want is what we call a hard border.
Right.
Will there be a border? Yes, by definition there will be a border. There's a border now. The question is, how is it going to work in practice? And I think the one solution that is not going to work is what apparently the UK government has in mind, to say, okay, we're not going to set up a physical border post, but we'll just put up some cameras and sensors. And no, clearly that's not going to work, because people will not accept it. But that it will have to be like a soft border, I think that is clear. Otherwise you jeopardize the Good Friday Agreement, and it's and that would be disastrous.
You are jeopardising the Good Friday Agreement by potentially ruling out a deal with the UK that is acceptable to the UK. It takes two sides for there to be no deal, doesn't it? And if there's no deal, well then you will want to put a border there to protect the integrity of your single market.
This is a very strange way of looking at it, and I'm also a little bit irritated that the EU is an entity that's been around for about 60 years. For over 40 years, the UK has been a member of it. The UK has been building the European Union as much as any other country. As a matter of fact, it's been in the forefront building the single market. Now, the UK has chosen to leave the European Union. For the time being, it looks as if the UK also wants to leave the internal market. The UK knows, better than anybody else, what the rules of the single market are. You've created them together with the rest of Europe.
I wonder whether you think that the rest of the EU will go all the way to the wire on this issue, backing up Ireland. Ireland obviously says we've got a veto, but we don't need to use the veto because everyone is supporting us. Is everybody supporting Ireland on this?
Yes. The way I understood it, I wasn't in the room, but the way I understood it, Mrs. May made this proposition and said, okay, can we debate on this notion of regulatory alignment for Northern Ireland and see if that is a basis for negotiations. That was a very positive step. But then apparently she got a phone call from the DUP telling her, no, you're not. So, then she also has to choose. Who is in charge?
Do you have some sympathy for her predicament, though, given that she is between the Republic of Ireland that has a veto over the next stage, the DUP that is holding her government in office, and indeed the aspirations of those who voted for Brexit last year in the referendum?
Well, of course. I'm very happy I'm not in her shoes. I recognize it's very difficult, and contrary to what some of the British media are reporting, there is really nobody. I've literally met nobody in the European Parliament that is out to somehow penalise the UK. Quite the opposite. Everybody. I'm from the Netherlands. Okay, people in the Netherlands want to keep close ties with the UK, but there's a limit to what you can do. And saying, okay, you can leave the European Union. You will have access to the single market, but you don't have to abide by the rules that everybody else has to abide by. That is simply not an option, and I think you and everybody will understand that.
Sophie Veld, thank you so much. Thanks for talking to us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.